Once upon a time, in a sun-baked desert, lived a grumpy camel named Humphrey and a mischievous scorpion named Sizzle. Humphrey, with his humps full of complaints, spent his days grumbling about the heat and the sand. Sizzle, with his tiny pincers and even tinier brain, spent his days plotting silly schemes. Their lives were usually separate, a peaceful coexistence of grumpy and mischievous, until one sweltering afternoon when things took a rather unexpected turn. It all started with a puddle. A tiny, shimmering puddle, the size of a small hat, appeared after a rare desert shower. Humphrey, desperate for a cool down, lumbered towards it. Sizzle, seeing his opportunity for fun, scuttled over and declared, "Mr. Humphrey, I shall help you swim." Now, Humphrey knew scorpions couldn't swim. He'd seen them scuttling across the sand, not gracefully gliding through water. But Sizzle was so insistent, so full of confident, if slightly unhinged, enthusiasm, that Humphrey, in his grumpy way, agreed. The problem was, Humphrey is huge, and the puddle was tiny. Sizzle's help consisted mostly of him clinging to Humphrey's leg, shrieking, "Dive deeper, faster, we're sinking!" Humphrey, already struggling to stay afloat in the puddle, felt like he was in a tiny, watery wrestling match with a particularly enthusiastic and surprisingly buoyant scorpion. The result was chaos. Water splashed everywhere. Humphrey groaned and spluttered, and Sizzle, after a particularly enthusiastic attempt to steer Humphrey, fell in head first, promptly losing his swagger. He emerged, dripping and sputtering, his usual mischievous gleam replaced with a surprised frown. The puddle, now a muddy mess, was no longer appealing to Humphrey. He grumbled about the inconvenience, the soggy sand, and the generally disruptive nature of scorpions. Sizzle, realizing his playful scheme had backfired spectacularly, scurried away, leaving Humphrey to sulk in the sun. In the end, neither Humphrey nor Sizzle got a satisfying swim, but maybe, just maybe, Humphrey learned to appreciate a quiet, grumbling day without the unexpected company of a well-meaning but utterly unhelpful scorpion. And Sizzle learned that sometimes a simple puddle is better appreciated from the sidelines rather than being conquered with reckless abandon. Their adventure, though messy and comical, was a reminder that even grumpy camels and mischievous scorpions can share a hilariously memorable, if slightly soggy, afternoon. Once upon a time, in a lush green garden filled with juicy bugs and bright flowers, lived a cheeky lizard named Zip and a super slow snail named Shelly. Zip, with his long, wiggly tail and lightning-fast reflexes, loved to boast about his speed. Shelly, with her tiny shell and even tinier legs, preferred a more peaceful, slow and steady approach to life. One sunny morning, Zip decided to organize a race. "I'm going to race everyone," he declared, his voice echoing through the garden. "Anyone can join, but be warned, only the fastest will win." Many insects buzzed with excitement, ants scurried to their starting positions, and even a grumpy grasshopper agreed to participate. But Shelly, despite Zip's teasing, quietly decided to join too. Zip, of course, was sure of his victory. He zoomed off like a rocket the moment the race started, leaving a trail of dust and giggling behind him. The other contestants, though fast in their own right, struggled to keep up. The ants, tiny but tenacious, formed a line, carrying each other forward as a team. The grasshopper, with its powerful legs, hopped impressively. But Zip was far ahead. Shelley, meanwhile, moved at her own pace. She didn't rush, she simply enjoyed the journey. She smelled the sweet blossoms, tasted the morning dew, and even had a little chat with a friendly ladybug along the way. She wasn't competing against the others. She was competing against herself, aiming to reach the finish line at her own comfortable speed. Surprisingly, while Zip was busy showing off his speed and celebrating his presumed victory halfway through, Shelley quietly and persistently crawled her way to the finish line. When Zip finally puffed up, panting and exhausted, he found Shelley already there, calmly enjoying a juicy leaf. Everyone was amazed. The race wasn't just about speed, everyone realized. It was about perseverance and enjoying the journey. Zip, humbled by Shelley's achievement, learned a valuable lesson about the importance of patience and celebrating everyone's unique strengths. Shelley, beaming, showed everyone that slow and steady truly does win the race, sometimes in the most unexpected ways. From that day on, Zip and Shelley became the best of friends. Zip still loved his speedy adventures, but he always made sure to appreciate Shelley's calm and steady approach to life. They learned that true friendship and success come not just from speed, but from kindness, perseverance, and celebrating each other's differences. And that's a race worth winning every time. The Gecko and the Mosquito. A hilarious hide and seek. Have you ever played hide and seek? It's a game of sneaky peeks and surprised giggles. Well, Chikak, the gecko, and Nyamuk, the mosquito, were playing their own version, but instead of toys and giggles, they had a delicious dinner and a whole lot of mischief on their minds. This is their story, full of playful chases and surprising twists. Chikak, with his sticky toes and bulging eyes, was a master hunter. He loved nothing more than a juicy mosquito for a snack. Nyamuk, on the other hand, was a tiny, buzzing pest who was very, very good at hiding. He knew all the best spots, behind curtains, under tables, even inside a sleeping giant's ear, but only if the giant was snoring really loudly. Our story begins with Chikak, his tummy rumbling like a tiny earthquake. He spotted Nyamuk buzzing lazily near a bright yellow banana. "Gotcha!" he squeaked, lunging forward with his long, sticky tongue. But Nyamuk was too quick. He zipped away just as Chikak's tongue smacked against the banana, leaving a sticky, gecko-shaped imprint. The chase was on. Chikak, being a bit clumsy, bumped into a stack of colorful building blocks, creating a delightful clatter. Nyamuk, giggling from inside a vase of bright purple flowers, watched the chaos unfold. He then zoomed out, leaving a trail of buzzing laughter behind him. Chikak, determined, scouted behind books, under the sofa, even checking inside his own shoe. But Nyamuk was a cunning mosquito. He hid in the fluffiest, softest parts of a big, fluffy cat. Chikak peered everywhere, but the cat's fur was too thick. He sniffed and searched, his little gecko brain whirring with frustration. He nearly gave up, his tummy grumbling louder than ever. Just when Chikak was about to resign himself to an empty belly, he heard a tiny, high-pitched buzz. Nyamuk, tired from all the hiding, had accidentally flown too close to Chikak's tail. With one swift movement, Chikak's tongue shot out, this time successfully capturing the giggling mosquito. The game was over. Chikak happily munched on his prize while Nyamuk, somewhat embarrassed but still giggling, promised a rematch tomorrow. And so, the hilarious hide-and-seek continued, reminding us that even the smallest creatures can have the biggest adventures. It's all about the fun, the chase, and the delicious, sometimes slightly embarrassing, end. Deep in the eucalyptus forest lived Coco, a koala with a heart full of worries. He was a shy koala, always clinging to the highest branches, afraid of everything from rustling leaves to the chirping of crickets. He longed for a friend, but his shyness kept him isolated. Down by the shimmering creek lived Gabby, a goose with a spirit as bright as her shiny feathers. Gabby was bold and adventurous, always making new friends and exploring every corner of the forest. She was, however, a little lonely herself, yearning for someone who appreciated her quiet moments as much as her boisterous adventures. One sunny morning, Coco was nervously munching eucalyptus leaves when a loud quack startled him. He looked down and saw Gabby, waddling towards him with a curious expression. Coco instinctively wanted to hide, but something about Gabby's cheerful demeanor made him stay put. Gabby, noticing Coco's apprehension, didn't rush him. Instead, she sat down by the tree, gently chirping a soft tune. Their unlikely friendship began slowly. Gabby would visit Coco every day, sharing stories of her escapades, chasing butterflies, swimming in the creek, and even arguing playfully with the cheeky monkeys. Coco, in return, would share his quiet observations of the forest from his high vantage point, pointing out hidden birds' nests and describing the subtle changes in the leaves. He discovered that Gabby wasn't just loud and boisterous. She was also a patient listener, her calm presence soothing his anxieties. One day, a fierce storm swept through the forest, knocking Coco from his branch. He landed with a thump, scared and disoriented. Gabby, hearing his frightened whimpers, rushed to his aid. She guided him to a sheltered spot under a large rock, keeping him warm and comforting him with her soft quacks. This act of bravery showed Coco that friendship meant support, even during difficult times. Their friendship continued to blossom. Coco's shyness gradually faded as he gained confidence in Gabby's unwavering support. He learned to embrace his own unique personality, understanding that being quiet wasn't a weakness, but a strength. Gabby, in turn, discovered the joy of quiet companionship, learning to appreciate the beauty of stillness and observation. She realized true friendship wasn't just about grand adventures, but also about sharing quiet moments of peace. The unlikely pair, the shy koala and the adventurous goose, proved that friendship knows no bounds. Their story reminds us that even the most different creatures can find common ground, create strong bonds, and overcome their fears, all thanks to the magic of understanding and kindness. Coco and Gabby's friendship was a testament to the power of acceptance and the enduring strength of an unlikely pair. Once upon a time, in a land filled with bouncy sheep and prickly porcupines, lived a grumpy porcupine named Quill. Quill wasn't grumpy because he was mean. Oh no! He was grumpy because he was constantly getting into prickly situations. His quills, while excellent for defense, were a terrible nuisance when it came to making friends. He longed to play, to cuddle, to simply be near other animals, but every playful nudge ended in an ouch. He was all alone, surrounded by a land bursting with potential friends, but separated by his prickly exterior. One sunny afternoon, Quill was moping under a big oak tree, watching a flock of sheep frolic in the meadow. They looked so happy, bouncing and bleating, their fluffy wool a delightful contrast to his sharp spines. One particularly fluffy sheep, named Fluffy, noticed Quill's sad face. Fluffy, being a kind and curious sheep, decided to approach him. Now, most animals would have stayed far away, but Fluffy wasn't like most animals. Fluffy approached Quill slowly, her voice soft and gentle. "Hello," she bleated. "You seem a little prickly today." Quill bristled. Literally, but Fluffy's gentle tone surprised him. He grumbled, "It's my quills. They always get in the way. I want to play, but everyone gets hurt." Fluffy listened patiently. Then, a bright idea sparked in her eyes. "Why don't we try something?" she suggested. "Let's play a game of gentle nudges." She showed Quill how to gently touch her fluffy wool with the tips of his quills, demonstrating a soft, almost feather-light touch. It felt strange to Quill, so different from his usual defensive posture. At first, Quill was hesitant. He poked Fluffy gently, expecting an angry bleat. But instead, Fluffy giggled. She showed him how to control the pressure, how to be gentle with his quills. Soon, they were both laughing, playing a game of gentle nudges, and discovering a new way to interact. Quill learned that his quills, while prickly, didn't have to be a barrier. With a little care and understanding, even the prickliest of creatures could find friendship. The day ended with Quill and Fluffy nestled under the oak tree, a most unlikely pair of friends. Quill had learned that being different didn't mean being alone, and Fluffy had discovered the joy of helping someone overcome their challenges. And so, in a land filled with bouncy sheep and prickly porcupines, a beautiful friendship blossomed, proving that even the prickliest of problems can be solved with a little bit of softness and a whole lot of understanding. Once upon a time, in a lush green meadow buzzing with bees and chirping with crickets, lived a tiny dragonfly named Zip. Zip wasn't your average dragonfly. He was incredibly boastful. He considered himself the strongest creature in the meadow, a king among insects. One sunny afternoon, Zip buzzed past a large, sleepy bull named Bruno, who was contentedly munching on grass. Zip, seeing Bruno's peaceful demeanor, decided this was the perfect opportunity to show off his non-existent strength. "Hey, you big lug," he yelled, his tiny voice surprisingly loud. "I'm Zip, the strongest creature in this meadow. I dare you to a contest of strength." Bruno, startled by the tiny, buzzing voice, opened one eye lazily. He looked down at Zip, a tiny speck against the vast expanse of his powerful body. He chuckled, a low rumble that shook the ground slightly. "A contest of strength, little one? What kind of contest? Zip, puffed up with importance, suggested a tug of war. He found a long blade of grass, clinging to it with all his might. Bruno, amused by the tiny challenge, grabbed the other end of the grass with a single hoof. The tug of war began. Zip strained every tiny muscle, his wings whirring furiously. He pulled with all his might, convinced he could win. Bruno, meanwhile, barely registered Zip's efforts. He didn't even have to try. The grass was already stretching taut from Zip's pulling. After a few seconds of intense effort from Zip and zero effort from Bruno, the blade of grass snapped. Zip tumbled gently to the ground, completely unharmed. Bruno, still munching contentedly, simply sighed and said, "My dear Zip, perhaps next time choose a contest more suited to your size." Zip, though slightly embarrassed, learned a valuable lesson that day. He realized that boasting without substance is pointless. While he might be quick and nimble, Bruno's strength was in a completely different league. He apologized to Bruno, who chuckled again and offered Zip a juicy dewdrop from a nearby blade of grass. From that day on, Zip, though still a bit of a show-off, learned to be a little more realistic about his capabilities. He continued to zoom around the meadow, but he was a bit more humble and a lot less boastful. And Bruno? He continued to enjoy his peaceful life, occasionally amused by the antics of the tiny, but ultimately endearing, dragonfly. The meadow remained a place of laughter, friendship, and the occasional hilarious display of misguided bravery.